Public affairs programming on Look TV is underwritten by the generous support of Pinnell's Restaurant, classic Italian American food since 1922, and Stored Tech, technology solutions for computers, networks, and phone. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pinnell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pinnell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable, home-like setting where everyone is welcome. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pinnell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Most cybersecurity firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
The Saratoga City Council meeting, an inside look at the decisions that affect you and our community.
So good evening. Let's begin. The mayor's unable to attend tonight's meeting, and so I will chair the meeting in her place. As you know, City Hall closed on March 13th at 5:30 p.m. and until further notice after calling a state of emergency due to the coronavirus, also known as COVID-19. City Council meetings will be held as usual throughout this time on the first and third Tuesdays. Meetings are being live streamed and taped, but they are closed to the public. The public is free to submit comments by email relative to any agenda item. Information is available on the city web. Updates have been released to the press, and the commissioners have been discussing city status during each agenda and will do so this evening. So with that, there are no public hearings tonight, so we can call the meeting to order. Let me start again because he was muted. We're calling the meeting to order now. Commissioner Frank, roll call.
Present.
Present.
Here. It's hard to hear, Lisa.
Yeah. Commissioner Dalton.
Present.
I don't see the super. Oh, they're running late, so we don't have the supervisors joining us at this time.
The meeting is still going on. I think. I think the meeting is still going on.
Yeah, their meeting's still going on, so they're going to be a little while. Okay. Salute the flag. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible.
Liberty and justice
for all.
Thank you. Okay. There is one presentation this evening, but I don't think that comes yet. Right? I think we still have to. All right, so there is no public comment this evening pursuant to the procedures adopted under the state of emergency. The public has been asked to submit its comments to the council by email. We received one comment by email today. So there are no executive sessions tonight. So next on the agenda is a presentation. The first presentation for this evening, the only presentation, is the 2019 preliminary financial report. And so I will move directly to this report. I am providing that report as Commissioner of Finance.
Commissioner Madigan, sorry, really quick. I think I may have received 2 public comments. I didn't realize they didn't go to everybody. Should I just forward them on to
the rest of the city council? That's what I would recommend. Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Lisa, the secretary.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, I'll move forward with the presentation. The City of Saratoga Springs, Office of the Commissioner of Finance, December 31st, 2019, preliminary financial report. The annual financial report update document for the City of Saratoga Springs for fiscal year ended December 31st, 2019 was filed with the State Comptroller's Office on April 20th, 2020. The Finance Office is preparing the 2019 financial statements. A date for the audit to commence has not yet been set. Upon completion of the audit, the Commissioner of Finance will release the audited figures. Note that all numbers in the written report are rounded to the nearest thousand unless otherwise stated. In the General Fund, 2019, the AFR indicates a $16,758,000 general fund balance as of 12/31/19, of which $8,439,000 is unrestricted and unassigned, and $8,319,000 is restricted, assigned, or non-spendable. The general fund had an operating deficit of $856,000. At this time, the unrestricted, unassigned fund balance is predicted to fall within the acceptable range of 10 to 25%, as outlined in the fund balance policy adopted by the City Council on November 4th, 2019. The amount is calculated by taking the audited balance available in the unrestricted, unassigned fund balance of the city's general fund for the most recently audited fiscal year, divided by the adopted expenditure budget for the ensuing fiscal year for the city's general fund. Copies of the fund balance policy are available in the Finance Office or on the public drive. The calculation prior to the audit is as follows. $8,439,150 was the 12/31/19 unrestricted unassigned fund balance. $48,715,918 is the 2020 adopted budget, which is the ensuing year. A over B is 17.32% of the adopted budget. It's in the acceptable allowable range. Figures are not audited and could be subject to change. The restricted assigned fund balance is comprised of the following items. $3,164,000 is restricted in the form of retirement reserve, insurance reserve, capital reserves, tax stabilization reserve, and other miscellaneous reserves. $2,149,000 is appropriated to balance the general fund and debt service fund budgets in 2020. $370,000 is assigned by the City Council for right sizing in future years. $1,000 is assigned for IT initiatives. $195,000 is assigned for the settlement of tax certiorari cases. $75,000 is assigned for knowledge training. $100,000 is assigned for economic development. $355,000 is assigned for public safety sick payments. $25,000 for Code Blue. $200,000 for skate park. $45,000 for trail maintenance, and $1,234,000 represents encumbrances. Encumbrances are expenditures committed to on or before 12/31/19, but paid after 12/31/19. The city also has non-spendable fund balance in the amount of $1,013,000, which primarily represents the prepayment of the annual retirement bill on 12/15/19 for 1/1/20 through 3/31/20 expenses. The following is a list of items which contributed to the AFR General Fund financial position for fiscal year ending December 31st, 2019. In the General Fund revenues, sales tax increased from 2018 by 5% and exceeded the amount budgeted by $643,000. 2019 sales tax collections were $13,443,000, a $650,000 increase from 2018 actual collections. Sales tax collections were strong throughout the year. Hotel room occupancy tax increased by 2%. 2019 actual collections were $663,000, an increase of $16,000 from 2018. Actual amounts were $33,000 more than the 2019 adopted budget. Utilities gross receipt tax decreased from 2018. Amounts received were $408,000 in 2019 and $419,000 in 2018. Receipts were $8,000 less than budgeted in 2019. Franchise fees increased during 2019. Actual receipts of $580,000 exceeded the adopted budget by $19,000. Ambulance fees decreased in 2019 by $199,000. $1,125,000 was collected, a 15% decrease from last year. Still pretty good. Actual amounts were less than 2018 budget by $170,000. Admissions tax decreased by $295,000 or 40% from 2018 as a result of a change in methodology by Niagara for calculating the tax. Actual amounts received for 2019 were $429,000. The budget was $723,000 for 2019. VLT aid was $2,326,000 in 2019, the same as in prior years. Mortgage tax receipts increased in 2019. Actual receipts for 2019 were $1,969,000 or 47% higher than 2018. The budget for 2019 is $1,300,000. Overall, total general fund revenues in 2019 were less than 2018. Total revenues for the general fund were $46.3 million, $300,000 less than in 2018 and $2.4 million less than budgeted. However, the City Council approved either at budget adoption or throughout the fiscal year the use of $2.3 million in restricted, assigned, and unassigned fund balance. Therefore, expectations were to have an operating deficit and budget shortfall of over $2 million, and ours came in at about $800,000. General fund expenses. Health insurance costs were $7,264,000 in 2019. This was a decrease of 6% from 2018. 2019 actual expenses were $416,000 less than the revised budget. This expense represents 15% of the entire general fund expense budget. Retirement costs increased 1%. 2019 total actual retirement expenses were $3,984,000 and were $68,000 less than budgeted. Social Security expenses in 2019 were $1,760,000, $178,000 less than budgeted, but $62,000 more than last year. Utility costs were budgeted at $566,000 and actual expenses were $481,000. Actual expenses in 2019 were $17,000 more than fiscal year 2018. Overtime costs totaled $1,275,000 in 2019, which was a 27% increase from 2018. Overtime was budgeted at $1,355,000 for 2019. Sick leave payments to employees who separate from the city were $352,000, a $111,000 increase from 2018. This was due to retirement of a number of long-term employees in 2018. Payments for compensatory time amounted to $619,000, a 4% increase from 2018. Compensatory time payouts were budgeted at $654,000. Total personnel services costs, excluding Social Security, were $874,000 higher in 2019. This was primarily the result of negotiated salary increases for union personnel. These costs represent 51% of the entire general fund expense budget. Discount on taxes, which is recorded as an expense in the finance budget, was $12,000 less than last year. Total general fund expenses were $1,821,000 more than 2018 and $3.7 million less than budgeted. It's important to note that of this $3.7 million, $1.2 million was encumbered at year end. Encumbrances are for goods or services which are ordered or committed to in 2019, but will be received and paid for in 2020. Therefore, the actual unspent, uncommitted variance was $2.5 million. The primary reasons for this budget versus actual variance are noted above. Other funds. The Water Fund ended 2019 with a positive assigned unappropriated fund balance of $2,881,000. Total fund balance decreased $252,000. The Sewer Fund's assigned unappropriated fund balance for 2019 was $1,275,000, a decrease of approximately $708,000. The City Center's fund balance as of December 31st, 2019 was $16,935,000. $7,343,000 was restricted for capital projects, and the remainder was restricted for City Center operations. Other items include debt limit. The city's self-imposed debt limit was $86,329,000 as of December 31st, 2019. As of year end, there were outstanding bonds of $68,070,000, of which $20,450,000 represented projects whose debt was excluded from the calculation, leaving $38,709,000 available for future bonding. Pardon me. The city made $2,693,000 in regular principal payments during 2019. In June of 2019, the city issued $9,810,000 in new debt for various capital projects. Long-term liabilities. The value of accumulated sick and compensatory time on December 31st, 2019 for all city employees was $4,271,000, an increase of $133,000 from 2018. The city also owes $258,000 in future lease payments for various pieces of equipment. The long-term liability calculated for post-employment benefits provided to employees at retirement, their health insurance, was valued at $111,806,000 as of December 31st, 2019, a decrease of $6,939,000. This is due to a change in health insurance coverage. Beginning in 2015, the city was required to report the costs and obligations associated with pensions. This was primarily to increase the consistency and comparability in pension information across governments. The information included in the city's general ledger was provided by the New York State and local retirement system, since the city is a member of the plans they administer. The net pension liability reported by the city as of 12/31/19 was $8,727,000. These obligations added to the outstanding bond debt noted above amounts to $193,293,000 in long-term liabilities. Total long-term liabilities in 2018 were $189,096,000. Therefore, long-term debt increased 2% as a result of post-employment benefits for health insurance. Cash balances as of December 31st, 2019 in the general fund were $12,682,000, $2,414,000 less than in 2018. $2,556,000 of the cash is restricted and can be only used for specific purposes. My comments for future years. As I present this report, we are in unprecedented times. While the financial condition as of December 31st, 2019 is positive, the unrestricted unassigned fund balance is deteriorating fast. We are fortunate to have cash on hand to meet expenses and to have been through our busiest tax collection period when the pandemic occurred. Unfortunately, the cash will run out and local governments are left with almost no options to borrow money to meet operating needs. Revenue and tax anticipation notes can be issued based on the ability to collect revenue and taxes in the near future. I wish I had the ability to predict with accuracy when the local economy will recover and how much the city will receive in sales tax revenue and how busy future property tax collections will be. Sales tax and hotel occupancy tax have already taken a sharp decline in 2020, the first quarter, with numbers reported only through February 29th. Budget notes can be issued for an unforeseeable public emergency. This sounds like our saving grace. However, local finance law limits the amount to 5% of the annual budget. The harsh reality is that payroll and benefits are 79% of the general operating fund budget. Benefits are Social Security, health insurance, retirement, etc. Then, of course, there are operating expenses such as utilities, supplies, gas and oil, service contracts that also need to be paid in order to keep city services going. 5% of the 2020 general fund budget is $2.4 million. For the water fund, it's $202,000, and this sewer fund, it's $281,000. Weekly payroll runs about $500,000 per week. A maximum budget note would cover about 6 weeks of payroll. As I give this report, we are in the 6th week of the state of emergency. If we borrow the maximum amount, how do we pay it back? Property tax increases would fall on the shoulders of citizens who are also struggling. Right now, there is not one simple solution or one quick fix. So I ask each of you to take a hard look at your budgets and see what you can live without in 2020 and 2021. Ask your employees to identify areas for savings or negotiation. I value each city employee and the services that they provide, and I want to try to protect their paychecks, but options are limited. Therefore, I ask each of you to reach out to our representatives to ask for relief for local governments. There is still no relief yet for local governments coming from the federal government. I've made numerous contacts, but we all need to act. I want to see the Saratoga Springs economy thrive, and keeping people paid is the best way to do that. And that completes the presentation on the annual report. I don't know if anybody has any comments. It's a lot of information, and I know you all received a copy of the annual report, but not until 5:30 this evening or so.
No, thank you for the presentation. It's great to have some numbers and knowledge for how we're going to move forward. Definitely a big believer in knowledge is power. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner, are you looking for some suggestions from some of the commissioners in regards to where the savings could be? Some other suggestions? I mean, outside of the department, for instance, maybe early retirement incentive. I think we did that back when we had the layoffs back in 2008. Are you looking for that type of information? I mean, I got some ideas that,
yep.
We sat down with the staff and, we got probably 5 or 6 ideas that may have some savings. Again, it's not the end all cure all, but, for instance, overtime could be taken as comp. That would be some savings. It would require that all overtime for city departments take comp time and freeze all payouts for comp time until 2021. Of course, we got a number of unfilled positions that we would not fill until we seen the light of day to be able to fund the position. Again, early retirement. We probably got maybe 5 or 7 employees that could retire in the next year or two. An early incentive, I think, would allow people to retire. Obviously, that would save money in salaries for the new people coming in, for insurance, for that sort of thing. One of the other ones would be, and again, this is something that the unions would have to agree on, I guess, because of contractual, would be to freeze the step increases for all union and non-union employees, and have their step increases set at 0 for 2020 and 2021. It would be negotiable if there was funding provided by the state and federal government if the economy were to turn around. So in other words, we would be able to renegotiate those increases back to the employees. And one other real quick one, talking with some of the staff, is deferred compensation, like a savings plan, where all city employees would contribute between 5 and 10% of their salaries into a savings plan, and it would be dispersed in 2021 and 2020. And it's a small interest rate, would benefit the employee while not having to pay out salaries, would assist the city during the lack of cash flow. At 5%, the salary deferment is approximately $1 million. At 10%, the salary deferment is approximately $2 million. So those are just some quick ideas that, I think we can maybe take a look at. Because obviously, I mean, I understand it's not a good situation, and I understand that, the city potentially could run out of money, and,
Well, I mean, we have an item on my agenda tonight. It's the update from the finance department on city finances, and a lot of the options that you're outlining, I am going to also reaffirm in that agenda item. And I'm also going to be requesting that each council member take a look at their budget and also send me those ideas like you just went over.
Yeah, we have done that. So yeah, we'll be discussing that. But those are just some ideas that, I sat down with the staff and we kind of came around with those ideas. So
yeah, so if you don't mind, also, I know that you just brought these all up, after the annual report, but I would try to bring them back up so it's on the record when we get onto my agenda item number 2, because that's going to be a good time to put these things on the record for the public. Okay.
All right. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So let me just jump around here. I've got a lot of paper tonight. Back here to the mayor's agenda. Okay, so with that, we're going to move on. And thank you. Unless Commissioner Frank, you had anything to add about the annual report, I don't want to cut you off.
No, thank you.
Okay. So with that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any comments or edits listed on the consent agenda?
No.
Okay, I move that we accept the consent agenda as listed and described. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The matter passes. Thank you. Okay, on to the mayor's department. The first item on the mayor's agenda is announcement about the 2020 census self-reporting reminder. City of Saratoga Springs' current self-response rate is about 51% of New York State's self-response rate, which is currently about 45%. So we are ahead of the statewide average, but we would like to see the rate increase even more. The mayor's challenge to our citizens is to have 80% of our population self-reporting by May 1, 2020, and we can do that. To complete the census, please visit 2020census.gov. The second item on the mayor's agenda this evening is an announcement, NICOM federal aid sign-on letter. On April 13th, 2020, the mayor signed onto NICOM's a letter for mayors to New York's congressional delegation. On behalf of the New York State Conference of Mayors, the voice of New York's 600 cities and villages and representing more than 12 million New Yorkers, the letter urgently requests support for additional federal funding for local governments. Municipalities across New York are extremely concerned about receiving the fiscal relief needed given their falling revenues and the unbudgeted spending necessary to enact extraordinary measures to contain the spread of the novel coronavirus. NICOM requests that Congress authorize relief to residents in cities, villages, and towns without regard to population size, as each of them struggles with the lost revenue and rising expenses associated with being on the front lines of this pandemic. This essential revenue stream will not only assist local governments, but it will also help the many small businesses that operate on our main street and to which we provide essential services. So, very important to sign on to this letter. As I mentioned in the annual report, reach out to your representatives, reach out to our state senators. We really do need some fiscal relief for local government. I don't know. I want to pause in case anybody wants to jump in. So I want to make sure I'm not going too fast. All right. Item number 3 is an announcement update on land use board activities. And I'm going to turn this one over to Deputy Mayor Lisa Shields.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tonight, we're announcing that we will be resuming our land use board meeting schedule beginning this Thursday with the planning board workshop. The meetings and workshops will be held virtually via Zoom video conferencing. The health and safety of our employees and the public is our first priority, and City Hall offices remain closed to the public. However, the staff continues to be working remotely during business hours and has been reviewing applications received prior to March 13th. Effective immediately, new applications to the land use boards can be submitted via U.S. mail only. Refer to the application forms for submission requirements. Staff has been working through the logistics of hosting land use board meetings virtually with the board members, applicants, and the public. And I'm happy to announce that these meetings will resume next week. Meetings will be live streamed on our website as always, and the public can refer to the city website for agendas and participant registration. Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah. Good news.
Yeah, very good. Item number 4 is an announcement, update on building department services, and Deputy Mayor Lisa Shields will also comment on this item.
Okay, thank you again. So while ensuring compliance with Executive Order 202 and considering the guidance from Empire State Development, the building department has been providing all services for construction projects in the city with essential authorization. City Hall offices remain closed to the public, as I said. However, the staff in the building department also has been available and working remotely since and reviewing applications that they'd received prior to the 13th of March. While we cannot yet allow the public to check in their applications face-to-face, I'm happy to announce that we'll be able to accept new permit applications for the building department, also by U.S. mail, effective immediately. We have automated our tracking process for the intake of new applications and the review of permit applications. So this will provide the public with improved, timely notifications of their application status, especially in the absence of this in-person check-in with an inspector at the counter. So at a minimum, an applicant will get an email notice when we have received their application in the mail, when their application has been checked in and is accepted into the review queue, and when it is picked up for review by an inspector. So that's all new. At this time, only permits for projects that have been deemed essential business will be issued until further notice from the governor and guidance from the ESD. The same guidance applies to inspections. So while we are reviewing and approving permits, we're actually not issuing them if they're non-essential business until that order is lifted. And again, the same thing applies to inspections. We're monitoring that closely. And it's also important, in addition to the overall COVID guidance, it's important to note that upcoming in May, there will be an effective date for the new 2020 New York State Uniform Code. So the new building code, which is scheduled for May 12th to become effective. There is no transition period for this. So the effective date for code for each project will be determined by the date that the application is deemed complete and is accepted by the building department. In most cases, that date will be different than the date the application is received in the mail. So it's just important to note, again, that complete applications are important. Incomplete or inadequate applications will only cause delay and will not be accepted into the queue. So that's all my notes for that item. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we're on to the fifth item on the mayor's agenda, which is appointment Saratoga Springs Arts Commission. Tonight, the mayor is reappointing Sue Kessler to the Saratoga Springs Art Commission for a 2-year term. Her term will last from 4/21/20 to 4/21/22. The mayor is also reappointing Ali Lopez, Ian Barry, Deborah Cohen Tiger, Belinda Kalan, and Pantelis Coda Giannius to the Saratoga Springs Arts Commission for 1-year terms. Their terms will last from 4/21/20 to 4/21/21. And I apologize if I misstated anybody's name. Following his professional retirement, Joel Reed has chosen to retire from the Saratoga Springs Arts Commission, and we do thank him for his many years of public and professional service. Item number 6 is to set a public hearing, zoning ordinance amendment establishing emergency extensions. And we will again turn this over to Deputy Mayor Lisa Shields.
Thank you, Commissioner. So the proposed amendment would extend the expiration dates of specified actions, decisions, and approvals made by the Planning Board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Design Review Commission prior to March 13th, 2020. The details of that will be provided in the at the next meeting during the legal post, and I think we just need a few minutes for that, Lisa.
6:55?
So, yeah, that would be fine.
Okay. All right. Item number 7 is discussion and vote, resolution to extend effective dates for permits and land use board approvals. First, we'll turn that over to Deputy Mayor Lisa Shields.
Okay, so there's a resolution attached to the agenda. I'll summarize a little bit of it here. Essentially, what this resolution does is in reference to building permit expiration dates and effective dates. It extends those. Those are set in the fee schedule, which the council approves. So the resolution addresses these expiration dates of building permits. A number of services usually provided by the building department staff have been temporarily suspended. So this prevents persons who have received building permits from completing necessary actions in furtherance of those permits within the timeframes established for their completion. Included in the resolution, the City Council would authorize an extension of time for the expiration dates of all building permits issued prior to March 13th, 2020. The extension of time shall continue until the current state of emergency declared by the city has been rescinded. So that's what's in the resolution.
Gotcha. So with that, I will move that the City Council approve the resolution to extend effective dates for permits and land use board approvals as included with the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The matter passes. Thank you. Item number 8 is a discussion and vote. Accept the donation of 6 $50 DBA cards from the Saratoga Springs Friends of Rec for the Recreation Bingo game. Right? Friends of Rec. Okay. The Recreation Department is requesting the council to accept the donation of 6 $50 DBA cards from the Saratoga Springs Friends of Rec for the Recreation Bingo game. Participants can play by going to our webpage at saratogarec.com, where they will find our recreation bingo cards. Participants who submit a completed game card by April 27th will be entered in to win one of 6 Downtown Business Association gift cards donated by Friends of Rec. I move that the City Council accept the donation of 6 $50 DBA cards from the Saratoga Springs Friends of Rec for Recreation Bingo game as included with this agenda. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Abstentions? The matter passes. Discussion and vote. Authorization for the mayor to sign collaboration agreement for the Southern Palmertown area. Located at the interface of rapidly expanding urban development and natural landscape of the Adirondack Park, the Palmerton Range presents a unique opportunity to shape a sustainable natural urban intersection. The Palmerton Range project area encompasses 40,500 acres within the southern portion of the Palmertown mountain range, beginning in the city of Saratoga Springs and extending up to Moreau State Park. The project aims to conserve land by partnering with municipalities and landowners to purchase land or obtain conservation easements in order to create a recreation corridor with a multi-use spine trail connecting Saratoga Spa State Park to Moreau Lake State Park. The collaboration agreement includes representation of a number of municipalities: the county, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, Skidmore College, Open Space Institute, and Saratoga Plan. There is no financial obligation to participate in this project. I move that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign collaboration agreement for the Southern Palmertown area as included with this agenda. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The matter passes. Thank you. Item number 10 is a discussion and vote, consolidation of waterfront park grants with New York State. This agreement will combine grant award contracts from 2010 and 2012 with the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. Consolidation of these awards is a formality required of the city towards its completion of wrap-up items needed to secure reimbursement of costs under these contracts. Once the final documentation is provided, the city will receive $465,665.08 reimbursement. I move that the City Council approve the consolidation of water park grants with New York State as included with the agenda. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? I'm going to discuss this a little bit. When you start seeing dates like 2010 and 2012, it's good to sort of clean this all up, and I will certainly be happy to have a reimbursement of $465,000.
Agreed.
Yeah. So all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say no. Any abstentions? The matter passes. Item number 11 is a discussion and vote authorization for the mayor to execute grant of easement for Niagara Mohawk Power Corporation. This easement agreement with Niagara Mohawk Power Corporation will allow for the installation of a new pad-mounted transformer on property owned by the city and under lease with the City Center Authority. The work is necessary to incorporate electric services for the new parking facility currently under construction. The City Center has requested this grant of easement and consents to the use of property for the installation of the transformer and associated uses. I move that the City Council authorize the mayor to execute grant of easement for Niagara Mohawk Corporation as included with this agenda. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Has anybody seen the schematics on exactly where this transformer is going to go in the parking lot? I don't believe I've seen that.
I have not seen that, but I will have Vince DeLeonardis, the city attorney, jump over to his Zoom computer and he can provide you with more information. How does that sound?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Are we good?
He's coming. He's just going to his computer. He's one of the,
Okay, I got you.
I think he's one of these, right?
I'm getting some feedback from people that were freezing a little bit online. Is anyone else getting that?
I haven't seen anyone freeze where I am.
Okay. Maybe we're just all sitting way too still.
Do you want to have him jump over to your computer for now? Yeah. Yeah, we're having an internet connection problem for the city attorney, so he's going to jump over to where the deputy mayor is, since we're still on this agenda. Just a moment. We need that just a moment music now.
Talk amongst ourselves.
Drink some water. Elevate while you wait.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Matt Zeno has reviewed this as well. The proposed transformers go on property owned by the city, but under the lease of the City Center Authority. Is in conjunction with the parking facility, but it's not on the area where the facility is being constructed. It's on the upper facility along Maple Avenue. You know, the narrow lot on the top of Maple Avenue?
Oh,
it's right
yeah.
on that spot.
I thought they dug into that. I didn't think that was
Nope.
was a piece of that was left alone.
They have some equipment there now. They're just going to be relocating it to the area that's being proposed. The map depicting this is actually uploaded with the grant of easement itself. It's the third page of the 3-page document.
Just so I'm clear, is that roadway that goes down into the parking lot? Is that the piece you're talking about?
Yes, it's the York, and then it ends, though. It doesn't connect to Maple Avenue anymore, but if York continued to Maple, it would be right on that side.
Okay. All right,
Right.
good. That answers it. Yep. All right.
Yep.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? The matter passes. I would like to make a motion to add an item to the mayor's agenda. It's announcement, 30-day extension of the city's state of emergency declaration originating on March 13th, 2020. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? The matter passes. So with that, I have announcement. The state of emergency declaration ordered by Mayor Meg Kelly on March 13th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. due to the COVID-19 pandemic is hereby extended 30 days until May 12th, 2020. And that concludes the mayor's agenda. On to accounts.
Thank you, Commissioner. The first item is discussion and vote. Accept donation of cloth face masks from Michelle Ursig and Dale Walton for a value of $500. The city was in desperate need of cloth cloth face masks for our essential public employees to meet Governor Cuomo's April 15th, 8 p.m. deadline. Marilyn Rivers was given the name of Michelle Ursig, who's the owner of the best dressed windows in town, as someone who might be able to sell us cloth face masks. Michelle, in partnership with Dale Walton, have been making and donating face masks to first responders throughout the area. When Marilyn explained how she was not able to obtain the needed masks, Michelle saved the day and offered to make the masks and donate them to our essential public employees. So I would like to personally, and also with the council, thank Michelle Ursig and Dale Walton for stepping up and helping us in this trying time. Therefore, I move to accept the donation for cloth face masks from Michelle Ursig and Dale Walton with a value of $500, and that's a motion.
Is there a second? I'll second that. Any discussion?
I just want to say,
I want to personally thank the both of them too for the much needed masks.
yes,
Thank you.
I wanted to say thank you as well. I tried to make one and it was not a success, so I appreciate it.
I agree. I'm like a no-sew mask person, so this is very generous of them, and thank them quite a bit. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? The matter passes.
Thank you, Commissioner. The second item is discussion and vote authorization for mayor to begin public assistant reimbursement for DR-4480NY. In order to begin the reimbursement process for FEMA regarding COVID-19, DR-4480NY, the forms attached to the agenda require the mayor's signature. Therefore, I move to authorize the mayor to sign all related forms to begin public assistant reimbursement for DR-4480NY as included with the agenda, and this is a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Say no. Any abstentions? The matter passes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Number 3 and 4 are some appointments. Number 3 is appointment of Elena Richardson to the Arts Council. I am reappointing Elena Richards to the Arts Commission. Her term will run from April 30th, 2020 through April 29th, 2029. The fourth item is announcement relating to remote marriage licenses. On Saturday, this past Saturday, April 18th, Governor Cuomo, by executive order, has authorized the issuance of marriage license applications, marriage licensing and witnessing or solemnizing of the marriage ceremony that is required under New York state law to be performed utilizing audio-video technology, provided that the following conditions are met. Number 1, the couple seeking the marriage services must present valid photo ID to verify identity whenever required by law during the video conference. Number 2, the video conference must allow for direct interaction between the couple and the town and/or city clerk. The witness or the person solemnized the marriage. For example, there can't be any pre-recorded videos of the person signing or engaged in the marriage ceremony. Next item is the couple must affirmatively represent that he or she is physically situated in the jurisdiction where the marriage is legally allowed to occur, i.e. within the state of New York. Also, the couple must transmit by fax or electronic means a legible copy of the signed document directly to the town or city clerk, the witnesses, the person to solemnize the marriage on the same date it is signed. Also, the town or city clerk, witness, or person who solemnized the marriage may sign the transmitted copy of the document and transmit the same back to the person responsible for the document by law. To the extent practical, all parties will use their best efforts to ensure the document is transferred in the most confidential manner, and information therefore will not be released to any other third party not associated with the marriage license and the marriage ceremony. And the electronic signed copy of the marriage license application or marriage license will be the official document for purposes of the domestic relations law. Local town and city clerks may provide guidance related to how marriage licensors applications and issues will be implemented in their jurisdiction. So this, I had to put that all into the record. We are working with Kevin Kling. This is all brand new. This is the number one call of all the things going on, the number one call that the accounts office has received so far relating to marriage licenses. since all the municipalities have closed down. And we're trying to find a secure way that this will work. In the future, it may go back to the way we had before, where people will be doing in person. But I think the new normal is, even when things open up again, we not only with this licensing, but other licensing, we really are going to have to start moving to that direction. So we're working with the IT department and the state of New York to get more information. So I just wanted to get that update. There's questions on that. Number 5, there's an appointment for Sabrina Luzon as Commissioner of Deeds. Sabrina Luzon joined the Accounts Department March 9th, 2020. Therefore, I am appointing her as Commissioner of Deeds. And the last item, number 6, is just a brief update on our grievance class. The Assessment Department, as many of you know, holds an annual grievance class. We've been doing this since 2007 to educate our residents on how to grieve their assessment. Due to the COVID-19 situation, we are working on options to hold some form of online class on May 12th, which was originally going to be done in person. We're looking at various ways of doing such, Facebook Live, etc., where people can ask questions, because this is usually a pretty well-attended class. We will keep the public informed and update them at the next meeting as details develop. And that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner. I hope Elena Richardson enjoys being on the Arts Commission through 2029.
Me too. Thank you.
I also just wanted to let everybody know that Supervisor Tara Gaston has joined us.
Welcome.
Welcome. So with that, we move on to the Finance Department. And the first item on my agenda is an announcement: late fees for city, county, and delinquent school taxes. So I've received numerous phone calls regarding the waiver of fees and penalties as they relate to tax bills. In an effort to search for ways to accommodate taxpayers during this challenging time, I have looked into potentially a waiver or extending the interest-free time period. Unfortunately, last week, the late notices went out to anyone who was late paying their taxes, and that really kicked off quite the firestorm. Unfortunately, legal research shows that the city has no authority to waive these fees. The only person who can do so during a state of an emergency is the New York State Governor. The New York Conference of Mayors legal team reports that local governments do not have unilateral authority to extend the interest-free period with respect to the payment of property taxes. This may only be done pursuant to subdivision 2 of section 925A of the New York State Real Property Tax Law, which provides that during a state disaster emergency, the governor may, by executive order issued upon the request of the chief executive officer of a county, city, town, village, or school district in the affected area, extend by up to 21 days the final date for paying taxes without interest or penalty in such county, city, town, village, or school district. Additionally, the governor has the authority under his emergency powers to unilaterally provide for such an extension of the interest-free period on a statewide basis. To date, he has taken no such action. With respect to other types of fees or late fees that are established via local law, water, sewer, local governments do have the ability to extend or modify late penalties and payment dates by promulgating an emergency order that suspends the relevant local law. Such action may only be taken after a municipality declares a local state of emergency. Our city attorney, Vince DeLeonardis, confirms all this information that we've received. Absent the action by the governor, the city cannot waive the penalty at this time. And we will continue to press on this matter and look into all means that the city can assist its taxpayers throughout this difficult time. I don't think I need to call the city attorney. I think saying that he agrees with what we've written here is probably enough. Okay. The second item on my agenda is an update from the Finance Department regarding, first I'd like to welcome Supervisor Matt Veach to the meeting. Both supervisors had a County Board of Supervisor meeting this afternoon that ran late, and they have now joined us. Thank you.
Meeting marathon.
Thank you. Hi.
Meeting marathon. Hello. Okay, so with that, I will provide an update on the COVID-19 and as it pertains to city finances. Okay, so with regard to revenue, and the quarterly report is due out, but I will not have that to you until the next council meeting. So you will get a little bit of quarterly financial information in this report that I have prepared for you tonight, but it's not the full first quarter report. The effects of the pandemic are readily apparent at the national, state, and local levels. Hard data is replacing early projections, and projections are being fine-tuned going forward. Revenue declines are real and they are here, and we can no longer afford to base our response to COVID-19 on hopes of a turnaround, uptick, reversal, or recovery. It is time to establish plans to cover the city's actual, not potential, revenue gap. Council is required by the city charter and its oath of office to do so. At the national and state levels, financial markets have plunged and are swinging. Debt markets are unstable. Economic activity has declined with both supply and demand sides dropping. A COVID-19 recession is predicted and a deep recession may follow. U.S. retail sales suffered the biggest plunge on record in March, dropping 8.7%. Oh boy, these are not the original notes that I had. Okay. I knew I was going to have a problem. Give me 1 second. I'm going to read this off my computer because I made some changes to my notes based on some stuff that came out today from the federal government. So just give me 1 second. All right. All right. Sorry, just give me a minute. Lots of paper to get ready for these meetings. Okay, yes. So I think I was at a COVID-19 recession is predicted and a deep recession may follow. U.S. retail sales suffered the biggest plunge on record in March, dropping 8.7%. Declines are predicted for tax and other revenue collections. Banking groups report that the federal stimulus program providing $349 billion for small business payroll protection has been completely depleted. The $484 billion legislation that is out there today, basically, would increase funding for the Paycheck Protection Program by $310 billion, boost a separate small business emergency grant and loan program by $60 billion, and direct $75 billion to hospitals and $25 billion to a new coronavirus testing program. Senate approval is expected, I guess, today. And the president says he will sign the bill. Democrats failed to convince Republicans to allocate more money for states and localities, but Senator Schumer said that they'd gotten a commitment from the White House that cities and states could use $150 billion allocated in the earlier $2 trillion CARES Act to offset some of the lost revenue in local budgets. So that money was initially designed to address each state's coronavirus response. So we are watching this carefully, and we are hoping that there will be further relief for local governments. National employment claims have topped 22 million as of last Thursday. This is 13.5%. This is 13.5% of the labor force. The last 4 weeks of claims in New York State indicate a 1,446% increase over the same 4-week interval last year. Moreover, the state budget includes language that permits the state budget director to make mid-year budget reductions to localities pending the circumstances. At the local level, we are anticipating an annual revenue loss of 14 to 16 million, or 33% of our total 2020 operating budget. While this may be a worst case scenario, revenue collections are already evidenced by a substantial slowdown. City sales tax report for January through the end of February of 2020 shows a 4.2% decrease for 2019, and that was specifically in February. January sales tax was actually quite good and up over last January 2019. So that 4.2% decrease was specifically in February. Occupancy tax covering December 2019 through the end of February 2020 shows a 12.5% decrease from 2019. These time periods barely clip the beginning of the New York State COVID-19 experience. As to expenditures, non-wage purchases and procurement While it is unlikely that we will remedy a 33% revenue shortfall by way of expenditure cuts only, we must do our best as other options are restricted and as well as costly. In an April 10th memo to the City Council, I asked all departments to review their budgets for non-mandatory expenditures, training, and other budget appropriations that can be trimmed or cut. At this time, I am asking each department to submit to me by April 29th an expenditure reduction that may be made part of the plan I will present to the council for the management of the current budget imbalance. And I will have a memo out to you tomorrow with more details about this request to the entire City Council. In terms of wages and employees, all city employees, both part-time and full-time, have been paid full wages through April 17th. As of April 18th, all part-time employees have been furloughed unless their departments deem them essential and they are actually working. A temporary hiring freeze is in effect from April 10th until further notice. This includes new hires included in the 2020 budget, as well as replacement hires. Until this is rescinded, all hiring will be on an emergency basis only, as approved by the City Council. I've asked departments, unions, human resources, civil service, and payroll to assist with creative and equitable ways to reduce or defer the city's payroll liability while retaining employees and employee benefits. It goes without saying that layoffs are a last resort. However, Council is committed by oath to protect the health and safety and welfare of the city, its citizens, and taxpayers. Even the most distasteful options must be considered against long and short-term the long and short-term city sustainability. Options that are under consideration. The city has several financial tools in its toolbox to manage the circumstances at hand. These include payroll reductions, loans, using our savings, which is our fund balance that I discussed pretty much in detail when I gave the annual report this evening, and we are actually using the cash fund balance at this time, and experience a deficit and layoffs. No single option will cover the anticipated revenue loss. Utilized together, we can bring the city more safely through this crisis. As I review these options, bear in mind that payroll supporting the general water, sewer, and city center funds alone runs about $500,000 per week, $2 million per month. Cash on hand is required to pay this liability. Shared work program. The New York State Department of Labor has offered a shared work program that allows for the reduction of work hours and wages, accompanied by a corresponding partial unemployment payment. Not only do employees receive a greater percent of wage per the hours worked, they retain full health care benefits paid for by the city throughout the duration of the program plan. Reductions run from a minimum of 20% to a maximum of 60%. The duration runs for up to 26 weeks. The program can be revised as often and in any way the city sees fit. An application requires the approval of any union in which participating employees are members. These unions must also approve any revisions made throughout the plan. The flexibility is maximal. The paperwork is extensive. The benefits of retained healthcare benefits, regardless of hours worked, is invaluable. The shared work program fund is not everlasting. It will be tapped out, just as the $359 billion set aside for the first federal government payroll protection plan for small businesses has already disappeared. To date, all 7 unions have declined approval at this time, but discussions remain open. Layoffs. In absence of the shared work program, layoffs pursuant to civil service rules and regulations are the alternative to help meet payroll with the available cash on hand. While they must be addressed, I think there is a general agreement that they are the least palatable option, but should be reviewed as part of the request that I will be sending you, that I'm telling you about tonight, to reduce expenses. Employees will receive no wage, no healthcare benefits, and no retirement accruals. They will join the ranks of the 22 million who have applied nationwide for unemployment and the claims that have overwhelmed the New York State Department of Labor. What seems most critical, they will lose healthcare benefits unless they opt to pay COBRA, which is about a $2,000 per month for family plan. Wage reduction deferrals. Union contracts can be reopened for negotiations regarding the deferral of wages to 2021 and beyond. Discussions regarding the deferral of raises slated for 2021 has already begun. The conversation, and it's only a conversation, is about deferral and not about the elimination of a potential increase. Retirement incentives, the city can encourage retirements by waiving the notice required to receive the retirement incentive. While retirements can require cash on hand to cover accrual payouts, new hire training, and information transfer, they can save money by replacing higher salaried employees with lower salaried employees at the cost of lost expertise. Borrowing, the city may borrow monies via budget notes, tax anticipation notes, revenue anticipation notes, bond anticipation notes. These are short-term loans, either 18 months or less, with substantial interest rates. And they require the backing of either taxes or sales tax revenue or other revenues. Not all of them. The budget note is one that is looking like a viable option. In terms of bonding, it is not available to cover general operating expenses or payroll. This has been extensively researched and corroborated. Budget notes, pursuant to New York State Local Finance Law, Article 2, Section 29, budget notes are available for up to 5% of the annual general operating fund, which for us is $48.7 million, which totals about $2.4 million and must be paid back with interest by the end of the year after which they are established. They can be sold publicly or privately. Interest rates for a public sale are estimated at 3 to 4%. Interest rates at a private sale are unavailable at this time, but would likely be higher. TANs and RANs, the tax anticipation notes and revenue anticipation notes, are loans which are secured by anticipated tax collection and anticipated revenue collection, respectively. Each requires the confidence of the lender. They can be sufficiently backed. Both of those revenues are vulnerable at this time, which may affect the availability of these loans and interest rates. Federal programs, there are no federal programs available to local governments at this time, but there is starting to be much talk about it. So I am hopeful that there will be some economic relief for local governments at some point in time. How much that is going to be for the city of Saratoga Springs remains to be seen. The Payroll Protection Program loan covers payroll for 8 weeks with built-in loan forgiveness subject to conditions. It's for small businesses only. The $359 billion set aside for this program has been completely depleted. And I believe I already discussed the Payroll Protection Program that is expected to be signed by the Senate today. I don't know. I don't know where they are. That was
passed.
What?
I think it has to go to the House. I think the Senate passed it already.
The Senate passed it, and now it's got to go to the House. Okay, yeah, I knew it was one way or the other. Okay, thank you. But they're expecting that to pass. And I think the president has indicated that he will sign it, right? Okay, here it is. Okay, yeah, I already said that. I just had it reversed. Okay, so there's a federal municipal liquidity facility program designed for the feds to buy up debt from states, counties, and cities. It has a population threshold that almost no county in the New York State meets. There are 2, Queens and Kings, and 1 city, New York City, in the state that meet the population threshold needed to access this facility. It is the case, however, that New York State could issue bonds to this new facility and then use the proceeds to buy bonds from cities like Saratoga Springs. I petitioned the state to consider this, but I think that's unlikely. So fund balance, the city currently has between $8 and $9 million available in unreserved, unappropriated fund balance. It has additional funds that are encumbered for already committed liabilities and reserves that are limited to restricted uses. These are not freely available for indiscriminate general fund operational costs and cannot be released for these costs. Given the monthly payroll of $2 million, this will be helpful but not sufficient for a lengthy duration. It must be tapped judiciously in order to remain prepared for 2021 and thereafter, as well as to retain our bond rating. The city may experience a deficit in 2020. This means that expenditures will exceed revenues for the annual 2020 budget year. A deficit does affect fund balance for 2021 and every year thereafter. May also affect cash available to cover wage deferrals, contractual wage increase deferrals, short-term loan interest, TANs, RANs, budget notes, and the myriad of revenue and expenditure increases that the city is sure to see pursuant to the fallout of COVID-19, including but not limited to BLT aid, state aid, sales tax, property tax, occupancy tax, mortgage tax, Niagara general admissions tax, parking ticket revenue, building permit revenue, healthcare costs, and outside vendor expenditures. In the event that the city foresees that its budget is out of balance, it is required pursuant to the city charter to consider a plan for remediation. So I remind each department that I have asked you and will follow up with a letter tomorrow to submit to me by April 29th your expenditure reductions. I will send this email to this effect as soon as possible, and thank you in advance for your resourcefulness and your support. Research, inquiries, and appeals for aid. My efforts have been abundant and relentless and will continue to be until the city has a plan that does not bankrupt our financial health or invaluable employees. Any recommendations that the council has to offer, Commissioner Scirocco, you gave us quite a few earlier during the annual report. I'd love for you to restate them for the record. They're more than welcome. We are all in this together. We are all aiming for the same outcome, an intact city with a sustainable plan. That's my report for tonight. I open it for comments.
So we're going to be asked to give you a letter by April 29th with expense reductions. Is there a certain number that we're going to have to meet, or is this just generally looking and?
So right now I want you to, I haven't decided on a certain number. I mean, I've been toying around that talking about this with the finance department. Do we want to come out and say 20%? What I'd really ideally like right now is to really have everyone look through their budget and present me with some options, and I can consolidate that and see where we're at. If I need to come back to you and say, okay, we didn't go deep enough, I will.
Thank you.
Again, I know, Commissioner, I know you touched, I don't know if anybody else wants to comment, but I'm going to repeat what I said earlier. And again, Commissioner, I know you touched on some of these points, but I think the early retirement, I'll just read from my notes here, the early retirement incentive, we have in our department 5 to 7 employees who could retire in the next year or two. I think an early incentive would allow the employees to retire early and save the city funds on salary. Again, an immediate savings would be to leave these positions vacant and fill certain positions on a case-by-case basis, as you said. Secondly, the DPW budgetary savings, I think we've already looked at our budget and a preliminary review. And again, this is strictly preliminary. The budget demonstrated that approximately right around $400,000 in expenditures could be frozen. And this would reduce many of the routine projects and services provided by DPW. But DPW would be required to focus on projects with low expenditures for tools, supplies, and equipment. Again, there would be some hits in these services, but under the circumstances, I don't think we have a whole lot of choices if we do that. Again, there's leave the unfilled positions vacant. I mean, I don't think we have a number of positions in our department that are currently vacant and could be left unfilled until the economy turns around, at least. These include, for instance, the trails crew, which was in this year's budget, a utilities clerk, junior engineer, and assistant city engineer. And a couple of those are pretty good paying positions. Not to say we don't need them, but I think those are the kind of cuts I think we can make to help us out. Overtime, again, you mentioned the compensatory time, freeze all payouts for comp time until 2021. They could be taken in this is some contractual comp time caps are in place and obviously would need to be temporarily lifted. And that would be, I guess, through the unions. The step freezes, I mean, everybody gets a step. Again, this is all union and non-union employees would have their steps increases set at 0 for 2020 and 2021. This option would be negotiable if there was funding provided by the state or federal government and if the economy were to turn around. So again, that could come back to the employees, but it definitely would help us out, as far as salaries are concerned. And lastly would be and this was something that we toyed around with, would be a deferred compensation savings plan, which all city employees would contribute between 5 and 10% of their salaries into a savings plan that would be dispersed in 20 and 21. And then you could put an interest rate to it. But the savings would be at 5%. The salary deferment is approximately $1 million. based on all the employees. And at 10%, the salary deferment is approximately $2 million. So those are just some ideas that, that I sat down with my staff and we had kind of come up with, and short of borrowing money and short of coming out and doing something, we're trying every which way to survive here. I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic that this thing is going to turn around, but again, I don't think anybody knows when it's going to happen. And, if in fact, how all the other cities are going to survive. I really would. The other thing is I'd like to know what is everybody else doing? I mean, I haven't really heard anybody talking any layoffs, not to say that they're not happening behind the scenes, but that was, and how are they dealing with, with any deficits? Because I'm sure everybody is in the same boat that we're in. So those are just my thoughts. And
Commissioner Saratoga, I would like to thank you for your thoughts and ideas. And we've been having similar conversations over in the Department of Public Safety. I am acutely aware of the size of my budget as it pertains to the rest of in comparison to the whole cities. And we've been doing the same thing, just really looking at everything we do and what we can cut back, but not affect the public safety and prevent layoffs, but really, cut things down to the bare minimums, basically. And, it's not a pretty picture, but losing fire, police, in my opinion, is also not, it's just not something we can do. So we're looking at everything and we're going to try to work and do our part to get this number down as far as possible.
I'll turn this over to Commissioner Frank if you have anything. I did get to say, after I jump in on a point by Commissioner Scirocco, the Christy Spadaro, the head of HR, is in touch, trying to determine what other cities and counties are doing. And the hard conversation that we're having here right now has begun. There are counties that all are considering layoffs. Many cities are now asking departments to review their budgets and submit plans showing 20, 30, 40% reductions. So we have been in touch with our labor attorney also to see what other communities are doing. And he indicated that most are considering layoffs. One is considering the work share program, and also salary cuts across the board are being considered by the communities that he works with. So it started, like, as I think I've been saying, like, I see this as the next sort of potential wave if there really isn't any fiscal relief for us. Even with some fiscal relief, we already know revenues are way down. We don't know what we're going to get. So, I'm hopeful something is going to come to help local governments. I mean, we do represent 9% of the United States workforce with a $59 billion monthly payroll. That's a lot of money out there in the economy. So I don't think we are a group in terms of local governments that, can really be ignored. I hope not, but you just never know. It sounds like conversations are starting at the federal level about relief for local governments.
Just a question out of curiosity, Commissioner Madigan, do you know if there is any commonality in the unions not wanting to sign on to the shared work program?
Actually, two of the unions were, I don't know what the right word is to use. I wouldn't say hard nosed. They wanted to continue the discussion. The big issue that came across to me was, would it be implemented fairly across the board? So having these discussions about, say, what police and fire might be doing to reduce expenses if you have CSEA City Hall and CSEA DPW willing to cut back on, some of their work hours and work through the DOL program. I'm not the negotiator. I've only been in one meeting that was representative of CSEA City Hall and DPW. So unless Vince feels that kind of summarizes it, yeah, the city attorney says that pretty much summarizes the issue or feedback.
Commissioner, I just, calm breeds calm, panic breeds panic, and I know this is a very difficult time. But I do think we need to take a step back. I think Commissioner Scirocco, many things that he brought up, we went through about a decade ago. And there was also, the state also helped us on some retirements and made it a little bit easier for some people to retire. So I think everything that he brought up should be on the table and makes a lot of sense. Also, we do have a $8.4 million reserve, and I know we'd like to follow the guidelines between the 10 and 25% acceptable amount, but I think unfortunately in a lot of instances these guidelines are going to get thrown out of the window. I do also agree that we need to look back at cutting back at expense. I think stimulus is on its way. It's just not sexy and it's not a big vote getter. So I think both the president and both houses, the Senate and the House, did not really push this up front, but they will have to push this in the back end. So I believe there's going to be stimulus coming. And I think between all of those things, short-term notes, maybe even looking at some of our encumbrances at the end of the year. I don't think it's impossible to change some of our restricted assigned balance. I know we've done budget transfers in the past on some of these things. There's approximately $2.23 million in item number 3 on your handout related to right sizing and $200,000 for the skate park and trail maintenance, and these are all very important things. But that's something maybe at the end we want to see if we have the ability to amend the budget and take some of those items out, because I would rather go that direction before laying off police, fire, and public works people, because I have a very small department, so you could wipe me out, but I think I do more sales in my accounting firm than I have in my department. I'm not very big. So I think we need to look at the worst case scenario, as I think we're all doing, but I think to shoot from the hip and just grab a program or do something up front may not make sense. And as bad as this is for the city of Saratoga, it's a lot worse for most cities in the United States and in New York State, because we're much healthier than these other municipalities. So it is what it is. I mean, we'll get a little influx of capital by June 1st because the next property tax wave will be coming in. Obviously, we get paid more in March 1st because people pay up front. I do believe property tax will be down, but I don't think it's going to be a large amount because many of the taxes are escrowed and the banks will pay them whether the people are paying their mortgages or not. I think the people who pay their taxes directly, there might be a little bit of a discount on that end, but there will be a cash infusion there. I don't know what we bring in a year because we don't have the numbers in total here. I don't know if it's 20 million in property taxes. So we're probably, 3 or 4 million on June 1st. So I think we have enough money to get through the summer, even if we don't even have the track season. But then we'll have to make a decision. I think a lot of these final decisions are going to be based on what happens with the track this summer. And many sporting events are being canceled, like they may have no fans, Belmont and all these things. So we have to be prepared for the worst, but it may not be that 14 to 16 million either. Hopefully it'll be less. So I think we, do what we can to cut back on a lot of these non-employee related expenses via layoffs, look at all the things that the other commissioners have brought up. And I think the union would be open to them because they know how bad it is. Where 12 years ago, they weren't open to these things and we were forced to do layoffs. I think they know that this situation is very difficult across the United States. So, we'll come in our department with ideas, but I think everybody's brought up some very valid points. And I think at the end of the day, we will get through this.
So we're definitely not shooting from the hip. But I appreciate some of your comments and kind of reiterating the plan that I have been outlining. Right sizing does not have $1 million in it. It has about 300,000, and the skate park does have 200,000. And I have already been looking at them to bring them to council to potentially break. But the right sizing is attached to a couple new police officers that were slated to be hired. But we do have a hiring freeze right now, but they do have police officers in the academy. So there's a few more complexities to that right sizing assignment. So there are a lot of things we're looking at. The request will go out tomorrow still to start reductions, expense reductions in your various departments. I'm hopeful that there will be relief. Like I said, I don't know what the relief would be. It's one of the reasons I like the shared workforce program. It's easy to, let's just say the economy miraculously turns around. It's easy to go, okay, everybody's back working 100%. I am looking for as much expense reduction as I can get right now until we have a better handle on what we will be looking at in the future. I'm also very hopeful about stimulus coming from the federal government for local governments. I just don't know what it is. There was something being bandied about yesterday, which was about 3.1 million or 16 times what we receive in community development block grant funding, and we receive about 300,000. But I couldn't figure out if that could be used for operating expenses, and it was not included. It was part of this original package that the House passed today that the Senate is looking to take up. And that would have given, I think, the county about 20 million and Saratoga Springs 3.1 million. I can tell you, even with 3.1 million and not knowing where the economy is headed, we still need to be looking at reducing expenses. So the request will go out tomorrow to start looking at reduction of expenses. We'll see what everybody comes back with, and we will continue to put a plan together. We're not going to move too quickly we do have cash and we are in a healthy financial situation, but make no doubt we are using that cash. We're still operating pretty much business as usual, paying everybody 100%, paying benefits, and 80% of our expenses are salaries, personnel, benefits. So there isn't a whole lot to just cut out. When you look at that other 20%, as I said, part of that 20% is gas, oil, lights. There's not a whole lot extra that we do as a city. It's mostly salaries and benefits.
Well, I think that's
Commissioner, I'd just like to state for the record, though, your item number 3, I just mentioned a few of them. 370 for right sizing, 1,000 for IT, 195 for tax certiorari cases, 75 for knowledge training, 100,000 for economic development.
Yeah, I'm aware of those numbers.
No, but let me finish.
You said right.
Commissioner, no, I said that was one of the items. It's $2.23 million. So it's not 370,000. That was just one item, and I stated as such. And you're correct. You're correct that 20% is non-payroll expenses. But again, if we look, I'm just bringing up, based on the figures you gave me that I'm just looking at, approximately $10.7 million are somewhere in assigned balance. I don't think we need to use all of it, but this is a rainy day fund, and we have in the past reassigned some assigned fund balances. We've done it numerous times. I'm not saying we do this. I'm just saying that this is out there as a possibility. You asked us for examples of things we can do. Those are millions and millions of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this is our biggest ability to keep the ship afloat during this time period. I'm not saying use all of it, but there's millions of dollars.
9 years. I know what's there. I know what we can use, and we're looking at that.
Can I make a quick observation? Commissioner Frank, you brought up the track. Obviously, it's going to be a huge indicator of how our local economy is looking. I know that some of us at the city have been in touch with Niagara, and I just wanted to confirm, because this is a question I get all the time from people. Do we know whether or not the track is planning on running the summer? And my understanding, and I want to confirm it with you all, is that the track is Niagara is really just following the governor's recommendations. They're preparing to be open and run if they have the opportunity to do so, meaning the restriction on mass gatherings and events would have to be lifted, and there would be no existing public health threat for people to get together like they would at the track. And so if indeed that has happened, then they will be ready to run in July. Is that the understanding you all have as well?
My understanding is that. My understanding is there's also the possibility that they still may have a meet, but not have fans for safety purposes there. That is a possibility. I can't, this is what I hear from various representatives of horse racing people. And I guess the reason being because there'll still be gambling online. So there'll still be revenues coming into Niagara and to the state. But you know, we're not going to have 50,000 people at the track all the time, obviously. And you're talking about, you know, baseball games and football games and everything, maybe not having fans. So I think it's nothing, or they have it without fans, or they have it with fans. We just don't know. In all three situations, obviously, there's going to be a downturn in the amount of money we get this year. But depending on which one of those three scenarios comes through, that has a lot to do with what we plan. And so, you know, we just don't know. We don't know about many of these things. Like I said, the only thing we do know about is what we have in fund balance, and probably approximate what we'll get in property taxes. Everything else that's large, like sales taxes, you know, that's going to be the big dip. And so we just don't know yet.
Well, I think it would be really unfortunate to see the racetrack open and not have fans. I really stress the relationship between the city and Niagara, and I hope they would not do that.
Commissioner Dalton, do you mind repeating that? I missed part of that sentence. It kind of broke up a little bit.
No problem. I just said that I hope that the races don't run without fans, because I think that would stress the relationship between the city and Niagara, and I would like to not see that happen.
Thank you. So tomorrow, my memo will go out about having all of the departments look through their various budgets for expense reductions. We don't have a crystal ball, but we're going to be prepared for the future. We are in a healthy fund balance situation, but make no mistake, that was a snapshot picture, the annual report as of 12/31/19. You know, we've been through this for about 6 weeks now, paying expenses with very little revenue coming in. We are fortunate, however, that we had our first tax collection before really the pandemic hit. That is always our largest tax collection, because we offer a discount on taxes. This is why I have been telling the council that we are in a pretty healthy cash position. As additional revenues come in or don't come in, I will ensure that the council is made aware of these things. So with that, I'm going to go on to my remaining items on my agenda, which my item number 3 is a discussion and vote budget transfers payroll. Lines 1 through 2 from the general fund transfer in the amount of $35,765 to move the engineering tech to the senior engineering tech. Lines 3 through 4 are the general fund transfer in the amount of $2,000 to move HVAC plumber appropriations to overtime for city engineer's office. Lines 5 through 6, general fund transfer in the amount of $5,000 to move wages to city hall laborers from street laborers. I move that the city council approve the budget transfers payroll as included with the agenda. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Any abstentions? The matter passes. Thank you. Item number 4 is a discussion and vote budget amendments payroll. Lines 1 through 2, general fund amendment in the amount of $340 to increase streets laborer line due to workers' compensation received. I move that the city council approve the budget amendments payroll as included with the agenda. This is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Any abstentions? The matter passes. That completes my agenda. On to Public Works.
Thank you, Commissioner. The first item on my agenda is discussion and vote. This is approval to pay invoice number 7153118708 in the amount of $2,106.01 to Schindler Elevator for the Woodlawn Avenue parking garage. This invoice with Schindler Elevator is for vandalism done to the Woodlawn Avenue parking garage elevator on 2/27 of 2020. The elevator doors were knocked off the track and an emergency service call was placed to Schindler. Again, DPW has been working with the police department regarding the ongoing property damage to the parking garage. Therefore, I move for approval to pay invoice number 7153118708 in the amount of $2,106.01 to Schindler Elevator for the Woodlawn parking garage. And I put that in form of motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just wanted to thank DPW for all their work maintaining and responding to these issues that we've had with vagrancy and destruction of property at the parking garage. I know it's been really challenging. and the police department's doing their best to make sure this doesn't happen. But it's been hard. So we appreciate DPW and everything they've been doing.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you.
So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The matter passes.
Second item on my agenda is an announcement of the 2020 first quarter utility bills. The first quarter utility bills will have an adjusted due date of May 15th, 2020. This change is as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. This authority is conveyed to the Commissioner of Public Works by the Council in both the Water and Sewer Resolutions number 14, which prescribes that the Commissioner shall have the authority to establish rules and establish rates in special circumstances. And again, the city is under a state of emergency, and I feel that this is it's fair to the customers to allow them to, this few weeks extra to pay their utility bill. But again, just a reminder, if you pay your utility bill after the 15th, you will get a penalty. So, and I just wanted to make the council and the public aware of the situation. So,
Thank you.
Yep. The third item on my agenda is to set a public hearing to amend the capital program and capital budget to include City Hall renovation. The City Hall renovation and restoration project is near completion with some outstanding items to finish. This public hearing will be to amend the capital budget to accomplish this work, which includes IT infrastructure needs, upgrades of the existing elevator, along with current in progress and in anticipated change orders for the 3 prime contractors working on the project. The projected amount for the project completion is $563,077. So I think we need like five minutes for that public hearing. And with that, if there are no questions or concerns, that concludes my agenda.
So we're going to set that for 6:55, the same time as the public hearing being set on the mayor's agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
Go with that. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. So on to Public Safety, Commissioner Dalton.
Thank you, Commissioner Madigan. My first item is an announcement with the virus update. And this is from the Incident Commander, Chief Joe Dolan, who is leading our City Emergency Management Committee. So I'm going to quickly read this for you all. Mayor Kelly and Commissioners, I would like to provide an update from the CEMC. We continue to monitor the impact of COVID-19 has had in Saratoga Springs. We receive regular updates from the county. Call volume overall has remained slightly below average. This is consistent with the county. Fire department is seeing patients with COVID-19 symptoms on an average of every other day. Currently, we believe the social distancing and other measures are showing a positive impact. The CEMC is attempting to transition to initiating a partial recovery phase. I say partial because we want to proceed incrementally to reduce the chances of a secondary wave of illness. Members of the CEMC are attending webinars, which shall assist us with state and federal funding. As a reminder, I encourage all departments to be sure the proper personnel have completed the required ICS classes. City Hall construction has begun to ramp up. We are developing plans to allow departments to move in. This is a coordinated effort to keep people together, and allow others to separate and work independently. In the coming weeks, we will continue to monitor the governor's plan to allow business to open and at what pace. We will follow up with elected officials in an effort to establish guidance as to when and what extent to open city business. This concludes the update from the CEMC. If you need any additional information, please feel free to contact me. And that was submitted again by Joe Dolan. So on that note, I just wanted to say that I think there is a cautiously optimistic tone to that update, but I just want to urge the public to really remain vigilant with all of the social distancing measures that they've been so good at doing. I know the weather is warmer, and with the slower rate of spread that we've seen here, it seems like maybe we can just get back to normal or start going outside. But the second we do that is the second we just take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. So stay vigilant. Everyone has been doing a tremendous job. And that concludes my update, unless anyone has any questions.
I appreciate that update because we don't know what's going to happen as we do loosen some restrictions. And that's another thing that plays into sort of the economic forecast is we don't really want to see an uptick in the virus. We've been lucky so far here in our community and in our county. The rates still seems to be holding at fairly low, but we don't have any testing and we don't have any antibody testing. We're not on the scale that we really need to be having to really understand, what's going on with the virus. So, there's a lot of precautions to take, and I appreciate these updates.
Well, and I will say that, yes, the testing has been very challenging. It's been extraordinarily limited. And so the numbers of confirmed cases aren't a true reflection of the number of confirmed cases.
Right.
That being said, with the antibody testing, I know something that came up over the weekend that a lot of people asked about. There was antibody testing that happened at a grocery store in Malta on Sunday from about 3 to 7. That was something that the State Department of Health did. And it happened all over the state. And it was meant to be a true random sample of people who might have this antibody. So they specifically did it without telling the county or the city because they did not want anyone to know. They wanted to go into a grocery store, ask people if they wanted to be tested for the antibody, and just take a true random sample. So just wanted to clarify that for people. If we know about scheduled antibody testing, we will certainly let the public know as soon as possible. I know a lot of people would like to have that. And so we would definitely let everyone know ASAP. I wanted to clarify one other thing. I've gotten a ton of phone calls, emails, everything about masks and whether or not you should wear a face covering. The guidance from the governor says that if you're leaving the house and you're going anywhere where social distancing might be an issue, that you should wear a cloth mask. And so, if you're going somewhere and there's not really going to be any other people around, you're free to not wear a mask. I know it's hard these days to go somewhere and not have people kind of look at you and glare at you one way or the other. But if you're in doubt, put a mask on. There's no negative to wearing a mask. Put it on if you're in doubt. And all this information is on our website, the city's website, our social media channels, and the state's page as well. So it's all there. But when things change, feel free to reach out and ask. I know it's ongoing and ever changing. So,
Commissioner, I want to thank you too for the update. But just as a little update on my own, on Sunday I took a ride through the state park. And that was a pretty decent day. And I cannot tell you how many people were just walking up and down the path. And there was no social distancing going on in there. I was amazed by the number of cars. And, like I said, my wife and I were in the car and I'm looking at it. Is there something going on down here? It looked like there was a big function going on. And there were a lot of people down there. I mean, I'm glad they're using the park. But
I do this all the time. Man. The problem is that's not our jurisdiction. But
no, I know.
And I know you know that, but I just want, the public to be reminded of that because we've been in touch with them and I hear it all the time and I don't know what to do about it. I wish there was something I could do about it because, I walked around our downtown and I know this is all anecdotal, but, I was walking around our downtown with my kids on Sunday afternoon and we went into Congress Park and there was no one in, within like 20, 30 feet of us. And that was how the whole park looked. It was little groups of people that were together and there was literally like nobody around them. So obviously the state park is much bigger. People think to go there. They assume they can have distance and perhaps they're not taking it seriously. I'm not sure what more we could do. If you guys have any suggestions, I'd love to hear them because it's irritating to say the least.
They might want to put signs down there, maybe just to remind people.
They have them all over the park because I went to everybody wants to go to the park and they're coming from, it's not just Saratoga Springs. You can see it on social media. People are like, oh yeah, the Saratoga State Park. Maybe I'll go over there for a hike or a walk. I didn't even really get out of my car. It was so crowded. I was shocked that I just drove around and went into the different pavilions. And I was like, there were so many cars there. There was no way I was getting out. There was no way to distance. And yet there's a sign like every, 20 feet, stay 6 feet apart. You would not be able to on the trails that were there. So
it was nice to see people out, but not without the mask, I guess.
The most depressing / happiest moment of my life when I walk, from this meeting, for example, back to my house and I don't see a single person downtown. It's me, the instant reaction is to be sad, but then I'm really happy because that means that we're doing the right thing. So, I wish I had a better idea to handle the state park issue. I know it's a zoo over there, especially in a nice day on the weekend, maybe it is every day, but it seems like the weekends more so. Yeah. All right. Well, that concludes my update on the virus, unless anyone else has anything to add. That was great. Thank you. Okay. My second item is an appointment to the Saratoga Springs Arts Commission. Upon recommendation of the mayor and Sue Kessler, the chair of the Arts Commission, I am reappointing Matt Herf. This is a 2-year appointment. My third item is a discussion and vote for the authorization to pay the American Red Cross. This is an invoice for CPR and AED and rescuers first aid training for the police department that went over $14.99. I make a motion for the council for council approval to pay the American Red Cross invoice in the amount of $1,860. This is the motion.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? The matter passes.
Thank you. On to my fourth item, which is the discussion and vote for the authorization for the mayor to sign a memorandum of understanding with Longfellows. Pursuant to the New York State declared COVID-19 emergency, DR 4480NY, Longfellows has agreed to provide hotel rooms in case they are needed for our city's first responders, specifically for our police and fire personnel, at the New York State OGS rate of $118 per night for the COVID-19 pandemic. The city will be reimbursed by FEMA as an emergency expenditure. I have a couple things to say about this. First, I would like to thank Steve Sullivan from the bottom of my heart for his openness and willingness and desire to work with us on this issue. And I'll kind of dial back for a minute. As we were going through this in March and reacting to this pandemic, I was checking in very regularly with the police and firemen just to kind of check in and see how their morale was, how they were feeling about this whole thing. And it started coming up that there were certain members in the police and fire department who had immune compromised relatives at home, and they were really, really worried about how they would self-quarantine in the event they were exposed at work and needed to come home and didn't have any other place to go. And when I heard this was a worry, I immediately thought this was something that really is the responsibility of the city to be able to provide people on the front lines an option if they can't self-quarantine at home, specifically for those reasons. So I reached out to a few hotels. We were sure to follow the FEMA guidelines in doing this to make sure this cost could be reimbursed. And Steve Sullivan was just wonderful. And Chiefs and I went over there and we walked through the hotel and we went through the protocols and how this would work. And we're just extraordinarily grateful for him doing this. And I was very happy to be able to give the police and firemen a little bit of relief in terms of one less thing they had to worry about. So again, I make a motion for the mayor to sign the memorandum of understanding with Longfellows Hotel.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Great idea.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to Steve Sullivan.
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Any abstentions? The matter passes.
The fifth item on my agenda is a discussion and vote to accept donations from Quick Response and KPM Restoration. I'd like to thank Quick Response and KPM Restoration for cleaning and decontamination of vehicles and fire stations, fire trucks, and personal protective equipment. This was their Quick Response was just wonderful to do this. We really appreciate it. It's a critical service to provide during this pandemic. And so I make a motion to accept donations from Quick Response valued at $450 and KPM Restoration valued at $500. This is a motion.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The matter passes.
Thank you. That concludes my agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Dalton. On to the supervisors.
I've got to plug in my computer. If I'm missing from the screen, that's why. Sorry.
No problem. Supervisor Veach.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. I'm not sure exactly where I am right now, but it was a long day today down at Saratoga County. So I'm going to just quickly kind of go through my agenda here, and I'm sure Supervisor Gaston will have a lot to add on her agenda as well to match mine. There was a lot that happened today, so I'm not sure I'm going to cover everything that occurred down at the county today. So the first item on my agenda is just to talk about recent county board meetings and then talk about the upcoming schedule. And before I do that, though, I just want to quickly mention for the record on our agenda tonight, the passing of former Supervisor Mindy Warmoth. Her maiden name is Mindy Shepard. That's what she goes by now, had gone by. She was my colleague on the Board of Supervisors from 2009 up until 2015. She certainly had some issues in terms of her professional life as a supervisor of the town of Half Moon. But her and I worked together for several years, and after everything that occurred with her, and beyond, she has actually been a pretty good friend over the years. So I just wanted to say that I'm very sorry to hear of her passing, and she was the partner of Supervisor Gradage from the town of Charlton. So he is certainly having some issues right now, and our thoughts are with him and both of their families at this difficult time. So I just wanted to mention that before I started my agenda. So first on the agenda is just to talk about our recent meetings. So since things are moving pretty quickly, but since our last council meeting, we did attempt to have a special county board meeting last Friday. We did that on WebEx, and I'll just say the county needs to do a lot with technology. I'll keep saying that. Been saying that for 13 years. And that did not go very well. It was very difficult to hear people. There was a lot of people running on mute, not on mute. It was a lot of feedback, but we were able to kind of get our supervisors together, but then promptly did not ratify the special meeting to go forward that day. And I think for good reason. I voted not to ratify the meeting. And the reason being is that, when we have a special meeting in the county, you can only discuss the items that are on the agenda for that meeting. And one of the biggest issues we've been talking about for the past month is the time and a half situation with our employees. And that was not on the agenda for that special meeting. So to really get to the heart of the issue that we want to talk about, we weren't going to be able to do that on Friday. And beyond that, we already had a meeting scheduled for today. So it really didn't make sense to meet on Friday to talk about issues that we could talk about today, and really just move that meeting to today. So I'm actually glad we didn't have that meeting on Friday and glad we had it today. It was a very long meeting today, but I think very slowly getting us to a more productive place at Saratoga County, at least on the legislative side. So just to go over what we did today, basically the most important thing I think from our actual agenda that we had was that we rescinded the resolution paragraph from our former resolution in March that enacted the COVID-19 committee that was given the authority to make personnel decision and compensation decisions. So that was really one of the biggest issues from last month's meeting, was that we gave some authority to a committee that had non-elected folks on it, as well as a couple of elected supervisors that kind of made decisions regarding the time and a half pay, took it back. It really wasn't clear about what was going on with that. And we've basically now canceled that committee. It no longer has any standing at Saratoga County, which was very important. And even though we had some media reports over the last couple of weeks that we were going to appoint a new committee for COVID-19, we did not do that today. We did not put that even on the agenda for today. So there is now any special COVID-19 committee at Saratoga County at all. And really, I think that's a good decision. I mean, I was scheduled to be on that committee and I supported it, but I think at the end of the day, getting through this with our regular committees and our regular business, we can still do that at Saratoga County. And I think it makes sense to do that. So I will get to more of my role in that a little bit later. So now comes to, I think, a little more confusion here. So we did several other minor items today in our meeting, and we also did a memorandum of understanding with our corrections officers. We had to get their contract up to date for 2009. It had been expired since the end of 2018. So we did do that MOU. Additionally, we gave the sheriff some flexibility in scheduling, and we also compensated the corrections officers for a waiving of their right to outside employment while the COVID-19 state of emergency is still active. So we did the 2019, got them up to speed on that. But during this crisis, the sheriff has been wanting to limit the outside employment of the corrections officers. And I think for good reason. I mean, they need to be working in the jail and they need to be there, and having them outside in the public and doing other things could put them at risk for catching the virus. And then that takes them out of commission for a couple of weeks. If they do catch the virus, they have to go into quarantine for 2 weeks. So the sheriff was looking for more flexibility in making sure those corrections officers would be on the job during this crisis. They obviously resisted because contractually they're allowed to work in outside employment. But this memorandum of understanding kind of clears that up by basically compensating them in a way that satisfies them to, forego outside employment, at least for the time being, in the corrections department.
The figure of that compensation, was that disclosed?
It was in the resolution. So basically, remember, it does include their 2% increase for 2019. So the number is going to be a lot bigger than it actually is for the COVID-19 part. So the total compensation was $372,500, which again is a 2% increase for the entire corrections department. That's in their contract. The part that's for COVID-19, I don't know that amount. I don't know exactly what that is. It was $1,500 per employee. Again, the MOU is public, so at this point, because we put it forward, so I can tell you that.
Gotcha.
So that was what we did today with the corrections officers. Again, sheriff's PBA, CSEA, those unions, we didn't even deal with that today. So those are other issues that maybe will come up and maybe will hear about if you know anybody from those unions. But today we did corrections. So secondly, I'll let Supervisor Gaston talk more about it in her agenda, but we did get unanimous support from the Board of Supervisors today for entering into the contract with the city for the FEMA reimbursements for the shelters of Saratoga being at the Holiday Inn. So the county on their side was willing to be ready to have a contract available for the city on that issue. I don't know if you guys talked about it in your meeting before now, but basically we did unanimously vote to go forward with that contract. So it's really now going to come to the city. It's up to the city to decide whether or not you want to enter into that agreement or not. I don't want to get too many of the details if you guys really didn't discuss it at the council meeting today. But you'll learn more about that as we go forward.
Yes, it was not an item on the agenda, nor was it an item added to the agenda. So,
yep.
We can provide the mayor with an update from your meeting, and we'll take it from there.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's again an option to be taken up at some point. Secondly, all right. So here's where it gets, I think, a little bit more difficult. So in terms of the 1.5 times pay, the over 1.5 times for regular hours. So we first had put up a resolution to pay the amounts for March 16th through the 19th, which was already in place. Then again for March 20th through April 2nd, because from our understanding, that was essentially the time frame where the county said they were no longer doing time and a half publicly. Many iterations and friendly amendments occurred during the discussion there because there was a lot of confusing information that was coming out of the Human Resources Director today about who was getting comp time and 4 hours for every day that they worked and other kinds of things. And it was really difficult for us to, I think, pin down like who actually was getting the time and a half, even to today, and who was getting comp time or personal time or other types of benefits throughout this. So it was really difficult to try to pin down exactly, what we should do to properly compensate our employees for this time. So after all of that, basically, we decided to pull the resolution or pull a motion to kind of set what this policy should be. And then another motion was made to basically have this go through our regular business for next month through the Human Resources and Insurance Committee, and then Law and Finance and the County Board, which makes sense because it would take a little bit of time to kind of, I think, go through all the information that I don't think anybody yet has clear on. But because of that, we wound up doing a secondary motion or resolution that is ordering an independent investigation of the county and the time and a half issue. And again, as we did not get a lot of good information from HR and the administration on the 1.5 pay issue. So the board voted narrowly in the majority to actually hire an independent investigator to investigate the Human Resources Department, as well as I believe the Administrator's Department and probably anybody else who would be associated with this issue, our payroll and those kinds of things as well, to try and determine what happened and to try to figure out where we should go from there. I can tell you, and Supervisor Gaston knows I don't use this word lightly, that was definitely an unprecedented move by the Saratoga County Board of Supervisors. Nobody in the room has ever asked, or the county could remember the county ever having an independent investigation done for anything. I am positive that anything we've ever done has been internal and never asked for an outside investigation. So that resolution passed narrowly. I voted for the independent investigation, as well as Supervisor Gaston, I believe, did as well, but she can talk about her side of that. Tara likes to joke that I'm the last one that gets to vote because my last name starts with the V, but today I was a swing vote on that one. So it was a little bit challenging, but I think we made the right decision for the county going forward with that one. So then after a lot more discussion and a lot of other things that we talked about relating to HR, and we went to the executive session twice, dealing with the negotiations with corrections, as well as potential legal stuff with the time and a half pay and other things. So we wound up finally scheduling our HR and insurance meeting for next week, which is ahead of schedule for that to meet. And we also scheduled the county board meeting to meet in 2 weeks, which is also ahead of schedule on our calendar than we normally would, which I think is good. We need to meet more, not less, during this crisis, and especially with the issues that we have. And I would also say, again, as from my perspective, we do need to return to regular business as soon as possible. In my role as the chair of the Buildings and Grounds Committee, and kind of to mirror some of the discussion that the council was having that the county is not having about our budget, I am still going to have my regular scheduled meeting for next month of Buildings and Grounds as scheduled, regardless of anything. Again, with my committee, Buildings and Grounds, we have a very large part of the county's capital expenditures in our committee. And we can actually get a lot of savings through that if we cancel some of our capital projects and things like that through the county. As you may know, the county does not bond for their capital projects. We budget them. So if we cancel a project, then that's actually budget savings into that budget of that year because we don't do any bonds for our capital program, which seems kind of odd for the county to do, but we've always kind of done it that way. So we have. So we don't carry debt on our capital program. And just for example, one of the items that we have, I know of for this year that I really wanted to get done this year, but I will cancel is the county has a building where there's a big solar array in front of it. It was done in the 1970s or whatever, and it never really worked. And it's like this big ugly thing in front of one of our buildings. And we were scheduled to take that down this year, which I really wanted to get done. And it's about $350,000 project. So if we don't do it, that's a pretty big chunk that we can put right back into the county budget to help with, all of the issues that we're going to have. We're going to have the same issues that the city is having with reduced occupancy tax, sales tax, and all the rest. So if I can do a small part of that through my committee, I'm going to. And then lastly, I just want to say that, there was a lot to digest today. It was the longest meeting I've ever been in at Saratoga County. It was as long as city council meetings used to be. And again, we just got back just about an hour ago here. But it was good overall, I think, to have the meeting and start discussing the tough issues that the county has to resolve. Not all the supervisors are on the same page. We're having a big disagreement, but at the end of the day, I think this is going to be good in the end for us. And I think it's going to do a lot of things that will make the county hopefully serve the residents better than it has over the years. Through open government, I think we're going to return hopefully back to the technology committee and reestablishing that again. I know I worked very hard on that for many years, but that committee had eventually been dissolved. Getting back to regular business, starting to get back to the Board of Supervisors having the authority to make the decisions at the county, not relying as much on administration. And, again, we haven't had a lot of those discussions surrounding our budget impacts yet, but I know we're going to start having them next month. So hopefully there'll be more to come from that. And again, I thought you guys had a great discussion tonight about the city and all the various issues you're facing. We need to get to that business at the county as well. So with that, that's the end of my first item. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Maybe we'll wait until Supervisor Gaston goes if you have any questions.
I'll just comment on the financial piece that now is the time to start planning.
Absolutely.
You know, the more often you meet, I guess, it's good that you had a meeting in April.
Yes.
And I definitely appreciate the lengthy update of, you know, what transpired today.
Yeah, it was unique in the history that I've been there for sure. So second on my agenda is really just an update. It's the daily update from the county, but it would be good to just report that for the council today. So at the current date, we have 277 confirmed cases in Saratoga County of COVID-19. We have 11 hospitalizations as of today. The number of increase is slowing a little bit at the county, which is good, but it still keeps increasing. So we haven't gotten to that top number yet. And, you know, not to get into some of the reopening type stuff, but, you know, we are kind of a couple of weeks behind New York City. So if they start to decline, I think we're going to be a couple of weeks behind them before we decline. Their first cases came a couple of weeks before ours. So we'll see. We'll see. If the curve matches, we'll be a little bit behind them.
Do you still have the prevailing opinion that the limited testing here is affecting the numbers? I mean, I just look at Albany and I noticed, you know, their numbers jumped so dramatically when they opened up the testing facility at SUNY Albany. So, you know, if we had a testing facility like that here, would we anticipate seeing these numbers multiply significantly?
I would say so. I think if we get more widespread testing, I agree with you. I think the thing at Malta for the antibody testing was really not done well. It became kind of a mess on Sunday afternoon, but and I appreciate you guys kind of letting me know because I didn't even know what was going on Sunday afternoon. But you know, I got a text from Supervisor Gaston that there was something going on down at Malta Price Chopper, and I had no idea. So you know, it was kind of not a real well communicated thing. Maybe that was their intention all along, but
yeah. You didn't mention that part, and I will just to fill one what the mess kind of became. The state's intention was not to publicize it at all. It was somehow picked up on social media and by the media, and especially was widely reported as just general testing. And so, you know,
yes,
no appointment was necessary, no prescription was necessary, and right now you need to have a test prescribed and have it done by a hospital. So
exactly.
Flocked to the grocery store thinking you can get diagnostic testing or antibody testing, and so there are massive lines. The managers weren't, you know, notified properly. The lines were managed well. It seemed like it was just a complete mess.
Yeah. And they canceled it the next day. So.
Yeah.
So.
How needed.
I did see it posted on the county's Facebook page. I did hear, and I think the website. I did hear that it was supposed to be random. So I think once it went out a little more publicly, that's when the Price Chopper in Malta started to become overwhelmed with people. And that shows you how desperate people are.
Oh, yeah.
This testing, any testing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it could be a huge issue when that comes out. So, all right. Well, that's it for my agenda. I don't know. I guess that's it for me. And
I do have some questions and comments on your first item, but I want to wait for Supervisor Gaston to maybe give a recap, and then I can ask.
Okay.
Sounds good. Supervisor Gaston.
Okay.
Yep. Supervisor Gaston, you're up.
So my first item is actually a COVID-19 update. Supervisor Veach talked a lot about the numbers. One thing that makes me really happy is our requirements for ventilation have been very low in our county, even given the numbers that we have. So our hospitals are handling this very well. There's no, I know I get a lot of questions about like, are you talking about who gets a ventilation and not? We are not even anywhere near that concept in Saratoga County, which I really appreciate. And that's all the more reason for us to continue the physical distancing, wearing the face coverings when you're out, and making sure that we limit the transmission as much as possible, because right now our county is doing an amazing job. That said, I went to the Price Chopper in Malta when I saw the chaos on Facebook, and the Department of Health has been notified of how displeased we are that we didn't know about it ahead of time. And also, it was discussed that it should not be posted on our Facebook, both for randomizing purposes, but also because at one point the manager told me there were nearly 300 people in there
inside the
just trying to get tested. That's in addition to the people who were actually shopping. And it was a very interesting afternoon. Fortunately, everyone was very well behaved. Some law enforcement was called in case people got upset when they found out testing was ending. And everyone was they were great. Price Chopper manager, I have to give them credit. They were fantastic. I think they were very flustered originally, but went with it and gave out water to people and were very calm. So my understanding now is that those are going to continue to take place, but not in the same spot, and they're not going to be announced. And my hope is that no one ends up putting it on the county Facebook page or website. That shouldn't happen. I'm not going to say that it won't. But that's our goal. Additionally, everyone should be wearing face masks, as was discussed earlier, unless if you are under the age of 2 or have a child who's under the age of 2, or if you have a medical indication. For instance, I have a child with asthma, so he tends to not wear a mask when we're out unless we're in extremely close contact, because it can be more difficult to breathe through it. So if anyone has a medical condition that makes it difficult for them to breathe using a mask, they shouldn't wear one. That said, if you have such a condition, it is recommended that you not be in a position to be that close to others. So additionally, some symptoms that weren't originally put out as signs of COVID have been put out recently that public health wants to make sure everyone is aware of. In addition to the dry cough and the shortness of breath, which the shortness of breath is really a later sign, and fever, a loss of taste or smell, in addition to GI issues or a constant headache, have now been indicated as signs in a number of people with COVID-19. So if you have those symptoms, you don't have another explanation for it, it might be cause for you to contact your provider or public health.
I will say universally across the board, everyone I know who has been sick, especially downstate, and I know many, dozens and dozens of people, they've all said the loss of taste and smell. Every single one had that. So just a note.
I can smell. Well, I've been making sure I can taste and smell every day. It's been good so far. So here's hoping I don't have anything or never got anything. So yeah, our numbers have been great. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., representatives from the county employment office, social services and mental health will be doing a Facebook Live on the Office of Emergency Services Facebook page. They're going to be talking about what the Career Center and employment can do, ways to get through COVID-19 mental health wise. If you're anything like my family of extroverts, it's taking some coping skills to get through it. And then on social services for assistance that can be provided to individuals, especially if you have a loss of job, a loss of insurance, that sort of thing. So I recommend that everyone tune into the Office of Emergency Services Facebook page at 10 a.m. tomorrow, right? Yes, the 22nd. The second item on my agenda was discussion of today's Board of Supervisors meeting. Going back, like Supervisor Veach, I voted against ratifying the special meeting last Friday, partially because it limited our ability to discuss issues in the county, but also because I think it sets a poor precedent to call a special meeting for items that are not in fact timely. I think that's something that we don't want to start doing. And given that there was already a scheduled meeting for today, it didn't make any sense to have to go through all of that and not have access to discuss everything. So, but we did meet today. I would say a little over half were in person, and then there were some who were on the phone. We're making sure to socially distance, and no public was allowed, although they were able to call in and get muted for the hour-long executive sessions. So one thing that I'm really happy that we did is, in consultation with some members of the city staff and talking to the city, we moved forward the ability for the county to sign an agreement with the city to request reimbursement from FEMA for non-congregate housing. So because Code Blue and Shelters of Saratoga moved into Holiday Inn in order to provide appropriate distancing, that obviously costs significantly more than the normal housing costs. It is a public health necessity. And as a result of that, we could request reimbursement from FEMA. It's up to the city now to decide whether to do that. But by moving this forward today, we are preserving the option should the county choose to do so. Obviously, there are a number of options available to the city, but Supervisor Veach and I wanted to make sure that that one stayed there. And I brought the motion up, and after a little bit of a fight with Supervisor Kanowski, Supervisor Veach seconded it. So Supervisor Kanowski, I think, wanted to get in there. I also voted to approve the corrections 2019 contract. It provides a cost of living increase, which I think is warranted. But then it did discuss the consideration for the loss of secondary employment, which I think I'm glad that took place. And I think that we need to make sure that takes place in the remainder of our contracts with law enforcement. It's a public health need for them to not maintain secondary employment right now in order to make sure that they and everyone else are as healthy as possible. But because it was a contracted obligation of ours, we needed to provide consideration for that. So I think it was pretty good. The thing that was very important to me, though, was to make it very clear that the time and a half was not a part of this consideration, and therefore it was still an open topic for the county, and we needed to make sure that we dealt with that. To that end, I requested a meeting next week of the Board of Supervisors. That will not be taking place, but we will be meeting in 2 weeks. And at that meeting, the Director of HR has been directed to provide information on precisely which individuals were eligible for what compensation, particularly during the periods of time from March 16th to April the 2nd. And we want to have those in numbers and in the amount of money that it's going to cost us, because I believe that we need to get that taken care of as soon as possible. Not only is it a public issue, but I also believe that because representation was made by someone with actual authority on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, if we do not actually pay this, then we are opening ourselves up to significant legal and financial difficulties. And obviously, as the commissioner talked about earlier, we're entering a period of financial questioning at a minimum. And this is not the time for us to be also opening up legal and financial difficulties for the county. In addition to that, we did vote to send the whole process back to HR to have a discussion about that. But we also, I supported the outside investigation for periods of time during the discussion of the time and a half / personal time. Department heads and other staff members were told to not talk to supervisors, and information was not provided that was requested, or conflicting information was provided. And I understand that this is a difficult circumstance and we're all working and changing on things day to day. But when activities take place that open us up to the kind of risk that this situation is, I believe that we need to have someone outside review it. Again, not thrilled about having to open up that other financial bucket in order to have to pay someone to come in and do this, but I think it's essential to make sure that we find out where the pitfalls are, and so that we can move forward. Yeah, it was a very, very long, very interesting discussion. But I will say that the corrections contract was ratified by the union, about 85% of them, which is great. It means that they agree with the compensation they're receiving in terms of giving up the secondary employment. So, and shift changes. So that's good. And then we're going to be moving forward with regular order. As Supervisor Veach said, we have an earlier HR meeting and an earlier Board of Supervisors meeting, but the rest of May should be regular order. I do believe that the chair indicated that all the committee and other meetings would be remote. So we'll have to see, and I hope our technology challenges are dealt with, because that was a very interesting attempt at a meeting last Friday. But
I can tell you that Buildings and Grounds will be fine with technology, because I'll make sure that they are.
Okay, well, we'll see about everyone else. But in any case, that will make it, one thing that I enjoy about that is that it will make the committee meetings more accessible than they have been previously, because now individuals who are at their house will be able to watch or listen, depending on what we go with. And I think that's great. So crises like this bring out the best and the worst. And we're seeing both ends of that at the county, like we are everywhere else. And like Supervisor Veach, I'm hoping that moving forward we'll learn some things from it and be better. So the third item, which is very quick, and then any questions any commissioners have, is I'll be having another public forum on April the 7th from 6 to 8 p.m. That should be after our next Board of Supervisors meeting. So that should give some time for me to have more answers about the pay as well. I'm going to be doing it via Facebook Live because the
Supervisor.
Yes.
You mean May the 7th, May?
I do. April has already happened. Thank you.
Get that right date out there.
Oh, hang on. Let me look at my calendar and make sure I didn't just completely. Yes, May the 7th. Thank you. Is that why you were smiling, Commissioner Frank? Because you realized I was trying to go back in time?
Well, I had appointed somebody for like 30 years on a board, so I'm ahead of you on that.
Hey, all right. May the 7th, thank you, from 6 to 8 p.m. That should be after our next Board of Supervisors meeting. It will be on Facebook Live. I tried to do another method last time, and I could not get it to stream properly. So I know that if you do not have a Facebook account, you can still watch a Facebook Live. And then anyone can send me questions either via email or my text on phone, which is always accessible. I'll make sure that information is posted as well. So anyone who has questions during the Facebook Live can send them to me if they don't have a Facebook account as well. So that concludes my agenda. And I think there's some questions from the commissioners.
Commissioner Dalton indicated that she would have some questions for you both after Supervisor Gaston completed her agenda.
I do have questions. That was a lot of information. I'm trying to think of where to begin here. I suppose the first is I have questions about the SOS contract that you mentioned because I'm confused. And there was a lot of communication today that I also found to be confusing about this issue. So my understanding, is this for the hotel stay that's already happened that we're looking for reimbursement for, or is this for extending it and a future cost?
That would have to be determined in the agreement between the city and the county. It is my understanding that available for reimbursement are any costs during the period of emergency, which I think right now is the FEMA is scheduled out to May 10th. So you can seek reimbursement to May 10th.
So has the county given any money towards the Holiday Inn bill? Because I thought the city had. No, the county
is not providing any money, but because the county is the legal public health authority, we are the ones who have to apply for it. Okay. So the agreement would basically be we are applying on behalf of the city for reimbursement. The money would not be coming to the county. It would basically just be a pass-through.
Okay.
And that's why the need for the agreement for us to work that out to make sure that it's clear on everybody's behalf.
Has Shelters of Saratoga expressed their opinion on how they'd like this to proceed?
I think there have been a lot of questions. I think Shelters has some questions because in general, when you are seeking FEMA reimbursement, you have to use all available funds prior to reimbursement. Shelters has engaged in fundraising during this time. So there is some question as to whether the entirety of any amount that's asked for will be reimbursed by FEMA. That's not a decision the county can make. That's a decision that FEMA would make. So Our agreement would be with the city, not with shelters. So the city would have to decide whether they want to go forward with that or not. We stand ready either way, whatever the decision is.
To the rest of the council, my memory needs to be refreshed. At the council meeting where we approved this, I think it was $61,000 to go to the Holiday Inn. Was that something at the time we thought we be seeking reimbursement for?
I don't believe that that was not indicated in any agenda notes or anything that I saw, posted to the agenda. It was money, though. It was a substantial amendment to community development block grant funds. They are typically considered grant fund money. While FEMA, it sounds like there might be the opportunity to look for reimbursement if the city decides to enter into an agreement with the county acting as the lead, going to FEMA and looking for a reimbursement. So it sounds like there might be this opportunity if the city council takes this up. I would like to say, though, on the record, on behalf of shelters, although I don't work for them or really have an affiliation with them, this was their annual fundraiser from what I've been able to ascertain throughout the entire day. They may have unwittingly or inadvertently or unfortunately posted an online virtual fundraiser in lieu of being able to do their yearly fundraiser, which they usually hold at Longfellows, and then they do another one in the summertime, one fine day. It seems like it's unfortunate that they, called this a COVID-19 fundraiser, but it is under the guise of their annual fundraiser. If that helps anywhere down the line in terms of us moving forward with potentially FEMA reimbursement. The issue with shelters is they've got sort of several missions, right? They've got their shelters of Saratoga where they house people for up to 3 months. They've got the Code Blue, and now they've entered into also trying to help during COVID-19. So, the fundraiser and how it went out online is probably not atypical on how maybe other nonprofits are also trying to raise funds right now because they can't go out and be involved with the public, right? Like throw a big gala. So there is a lot of virtual fundraising going on. And I guess it's to be determined, again, if we enter into this agreement, how that fundraiser might, affect them.
Right.
I'm sorry. I guess I'm a little confused. Who would receive the money? Would the city receive the money, or would shelters receive the money? Because the city basically, gave the shelters the money through the block grant. So that basically was allocated like we would allocate money to any nonprofit. So that's the confusion that I have. Is the city going to get the money back, or not that I'm asking for the money back, but is SOS going to get the money? I mean,
the agreement that the county and the city would sign would be that the county would seek reimbursement on behalf of the city. So the city would end up getting the money. It would pass through the county to the city. What the city chose to do with it, that's not
community development block grant fund, or even transfer the money back into the revolving loan fund, because I think that's where it went from revolving loan fund.
Right. And I think that's a great use of money, because certainly our businesses are going to need it.
Right, exactly. I mean, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with. I'm just confused on who's, when does the money go to shelters, or does the money go to come back to the city? So basically, shelters is out of this.
To be completely honest, Supervisor Veach and I probably should have been looped in a little bit earlier. When the discussion was taking place, because we could have provided a little bit more advice on how it should happen. Right. Because this is kind of the three different entities working together, it makes it a little bit more complicated.
Right.
In addition to the fundraiser taking place, we could have perhaps provided some more advice on that. And, maybe push the fundraiser out a little bit so that we could specifically rely on this. We have sought advice. We don't know that FEMA would reduce any reimbursement as a result of the fundraiser.
Right.
But for our due diligence, we have to say this is FEMA's guidance, is because there was a fundraiser, it will be reduced. We don't know. And again, as Commissioner Madigan said, there are a lot of nonprofits engaging in fundraising, many of whom are going to seek FEMA assistance as well. That may change. We don't know. But
the difference is they'd be seeking FEMA assistance not via the city, correct? Isn't that the difference here?
No, we would have to be involved. We'd have to sign an agreement with the county in order to seek that reimbursement of those funds. In the end, even though they're not city, taxpayer funds, they were federal funds, but it sounds like there might be the potential to reimburse them on behalf of the city vis-a-vis the county.
I guess what I'm concerned about is that I'm still unclear as to how this matter arose in the last day or two. But if our goal here was to support Shelters of Saratoga and their mission of sheltering these folks during the pandemic, but then by requesting reimbursement, we may be endangering money that they've fundraised and have earmarked for other things. I mean, that just seems incongruous to me.
Right. And I think that those things have to all be explored by the city and shelters and the county to determine whether it's the right decision for the city to go forward. But really all we did is give you the availability to have that happen by having the county draft up an agreement rather than trying to go back to the county later on and get it done. We just kind of got it done quickly.
To be very, very clear.
Also from option number 2 of getting $15,000.
We didn't talk about option number 2.
To be very clear, if we move forward with the city and the county in agreement moving forward to seek reimbursement, that does not take any money from shelters. They would not have to give up any part of the fundraising that they have done. Now, if they continue to spend money in a certain way, we can't guarantee that all of that would be reimbursed. But it would not take any money from their fundraising that they have done.
I guess I'm just uncomfortable as to how this ties the money that we gave them for the Holiday Inn to their money. It just seems very, I don't know, too close for comfort, in my opinion, somehow. Is this also, was there any discussion of how the cost would be paid moving forward for the Holiday Inn? Because I understand they're almost at the end of their 1 month there. Is that correct?
I don't think we have that information, and I would like to make a recommendation that if we do want to continue this discussion, that we do it when the mayor is available to also participate in the discussion.
I agree. I think that would be really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think I can speak for both of us that Supervisor Veach and myself are both available to discuss this from the county perspective.
Yep.
As any commissioner would like to do so.
Excellent. That sounds good.
I know we've been doing this for a long time. I'll try to wrap up, but I just had, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you for what happened today. I think obviously having a meeting was pretty critical. And if you'd had to wait another month to meet, it would have been that much more challenging. I'm delighted to hear that there's an independent investigation happening. I also really appreciate, though, your acknowledgement that that's once again prompting you to spend money. And it seems that the county is really great at creating problems that require more money to solve, and then just it goes on and on. But I'm really delighted to hear that, because I've been really disturbed by my experience with contacting the administration and their relationship with the concept of honesty, I will say. And I think that it is unfortunately reflective of a bigger picture problem with the county. My concern is just that you mentioned, that the actions of the administration and HR have opened you up to these legal and financial challenges. And so I think it's amazing that there's an independent investigation happening. That will take time. And while that time is, while we're waiting for that to happen, the administration and HR, it's still the same personnel. They still have the same role, presumably, with the county. So will you be scrutinizing their actions to a different degree to make sure, nothing like this happens in the coming months?
I think it's safe to say that we're watching things a little bit more closely than we were.
Yeah, I mean, that's already happening, I would say. I mean, on a multitude of issues, I don't know if I can get into all kinds of details on that, but yeah. I mean, there's a group of supervisors who, including us, who have kind of taken it upon ourselves to, take the power back to some degree, one way or the other. And that's what we're kind of trying to do here is that, administration makes a lot of decisions at the county and, not necessarily all the time for the public's benefit. And over the years, I've been there for a long time. I've seen things happen where, we've kind of dismantled some of the infrastructure at the county that we probably shouldn't have. And, it's become a kind of a place where, the quicker you can get out of there, the better. And you're not really thinking much about what's going on. So, and yes, I was a supervisor during that time, but I think better late than never to try to make some changes down there and get it to function better for the public overall, because that's really who we serve at the end of the day, not ourselves. So,
well, as I mentioned earlier,
I'm going to try to start to wrap things up a little bit.
Sure.
I thought both of you gave us an excellent overview of what you encountered and put forward today. And it sounds like you're going to try to meet in another couple of weeks. So unless there's really something that we've missed or there's a very important question one of the commissioners really wants to ask, because I don't want to cut anyone off, I'd like to move forward with adjourning the meeting. No other comments? All right. Thank you, supervisors. I know you have a lot going on. Thank you, commissioners. We're adjourned.
Public affairs programming on Look TV is underwritten by the generous support of Pennell's Restaurant, classic Italian American food since 1922, and Stored Tech, technology solutions for computers, networks, and phone. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.
1922, Babe Ruth debuts with the Yankees. WGY signs on air. Exterminator wins the Saratoga Cup, and Pennell's Restaurant opens its doors for the very first time. For 5 generations, Pennell's has been preparing delicious Italian food, served in a comfortable home-like setting where everyone is welcomed. 90 years of authentic Italian recipes, 90 years of the freshest ingredients, and 90 years of the finest classic Italian dishes, all made daily by hand. Pennell's Italian Restaurant, a Saratoga dining tradition since 1922.
Most cybersecurity firms deal only with prevention, the systems that block hackers and viruses. Stored Tech knows the root cause is actually good people doing bad things. So we offer a security training program which includes certifying all participants to show they understand the basics.
Technology solutions for computers, networks, and phones. Stored Tech, your technology, our passion.